really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and share the journey that we went through at Advance with regards to our digital modernization. In this session, I hope to cover the genesis of our journey, some of the technology enablers along the way, and share with you some of the lessons we learned. But wanted to first start with a brief introduction to Advance for those who aren't familiar with the company. Advance is a leading aftermarket automotive retailer that supports a pro-installer business as well as a do-it-yourself business, supporting folks like you and I. Over the last several years, Advance has grown as a result of a number of different acquisitions. And the most recent one was that of General Parts International in 2014. Now, Advance wanted to be the preferred retailer for all of our customers meeting their automotive needs. This meant that we drove with urgency to provide these unique features for our customers. It meant we built applications that were stable, secure, and would scale to meet both the current as well as future needs. But when we started our journey several years ago, it wasn't uncommon for us to have major outages in core selling systems that affected our customers. We weren't able to respond quickly to changing market and get new features out as quickly as we liked. As a result of several years of partially integrated and unintegrated acquisitions, we had a lot of redundancy in our environment, a lot of duplicated systems, both from a business platform perspective as well as from a technology perspective. I think at one point we probably had all kinds of JBoss environments, both community and enterprise. Not only did we have multiple duplicate systems, but we also had multiple ways of doing exactly the same thing. So what this did was, added to the complexity and inefficiency in our environment, not to mention overhead costs. Like many companies, we also had a lot of really antiquated systems that had inflexible architectures that limited our ability to innovate quickly. And they also we had a lot of old systems where adding new code resulted in unexpected, cases, and our systems were a little bit brittle also. So we wanted to take a step back and look at where we wanted to be headed. We knew as a company we wanted to grow. We knew we wanted to extend our customer loyalty by providing these rich, personalized experiences for our customers. Our team members are our best part, and we knew we wanted to equip them with the right technology, tools, and processes to take care of our customers. And moreover, we wanted to remove the friction and simplify our processes and our systems. But we could not do this without technology. We knew that technology was going to be the key enabler. So around 2018, we started and embarked on a digital modernization journey. And we touched what seemed like every part of our business. And we had to do this while taking care of business as usual. We had a few guiding principles, and I think one of the key ones was we were not going to reinvent the wheel. We were only going to build what differentiated us, else we would buy a solution. We started with our target state architecture, and we literally touched every application that both our external customers and our internal customers interacted with. For all of the top applications that you have there, we used to have multiples, sometimes multiples within a single banner, and we align on a go-forward platform. All of these applications interacted with these core enterprise services that were built on key platforms, integration platforms, security platforms, data platforms, and so on. And all of these were developed by developers on these modern engineering practices and principles and deployed on a hybrid cloud infrastructure that was built for scalability and continuity. But as such, we had a few technology enablers. We aligned on a few strategic platforms that we believed will accelerate our journey. And one of the key ones, very frankly, was OpenShift. A lot of the applications that we were modernizing and moving to the cloud, we deployed on our OpenShift platform. And what this really helped us was to address all of that duplicity we had in our applications and the high redundancy that we had. It helped us to standardize, enable reuse, but more importantly, address all of the scalability and security and stability issues that we did have. Another area was we took a cloud-first approach. And depending on the workloads, we determined whether we were going with a SaaS offering versus an IaaS offering versus a PaaS offering. We knew we wanted to build cloud native and limit the amount of lift and shift that we did to a minimum. But I do confess there were cases where we had to do, we were working on our data center consolidation, where we did have to do some lift and shift, and those weren't without some growing pains. But pretty soon into our transformation journey, we learned the importance of having a good governance program, the importance of security, and soon enough, the importance of managing costs. In order for us to innovate quickly, we had to make sure that our development teams had the necessary tools to create new features and deploy them quickly. We had multiple different teams that had completely different ways of doing things. So we had to standardize on tools and processes. We adopted a SecOps approach and had teams grow in that space as well. In terms, we shifted left in many things, especially where testing was concerned. We made sure that we also included performance testing in our OpenShift pipelines. We try to make sure that security was built into every part of our application development, as was observability, monitoring, as well as alerting, so that we were building code that was resilient and operationally ready. And when we did have cases of issues in production, we were able to triage them and get back to business as quickly as possible. Another muscle that we had to grow in this space was capturing metrics and making sure we knew how we were performing, because very frankly, you could only improve what you can measure. So, a key component, of course, was automation. This wasn't something that we did very well while we were on premises, but that was another muscle that we were trying to grow. Another key thing that I've mentioned is, from a modernization perspective, data was very important. We wanted data so that we could derive business insights that could lead us to intelligent decisioning. But all of that was hinged on data that was clean, data that was accurate, and so getting a good governance program and stewardship was also important. Now switching a little bit to OpenShift, we deployed a number of applications on OpenShift across multiple clouds. When we started, we went with a self-managed implementation. We had one single shared production cluster, a number of non-production clusters. But with time, we moved to a managed solution. And we started, I would say, in the last few years to start looking at moving our applications that were on the self-managed implementation more towards the managed solution. As we moved to a managed solution, we also started looking at creating additional clusters based on certain workloads. So, separating critical workloads into their own clusters. And as we did that, managing of all of these clusters became important. So as I mentioned, initially we were all doing this with a central team. But then we moved towards leveraging Red Hat's Advanced Cluster Manager to manage some of these clusters. What that gave us was a standardized approach with how we addressed critical utilities, whether that was observability or security or vulnerability management, as well as how we manage all of the operators, whether it was related to service mesh or cost metrics and so on. Another important thing was managing of the configuration. And with time, we switched more to a GitOps approach and leverage Argo CD to manage some of the drift that we would see. Finally, talking about the application workloads that we had a mix. We had some of the custom applications that we developed, which were, they could be services, they were web applications, but we also had deployed applications that were third party. For example, our e-com platform, and also certain applications like solar. That was one of the interesting ones. When we did our modernization journey, we had some search services that were on premises that leveraged solar. So as we modernized those applications and wanted to move them to the cloud and deploy them in OpenShift, we wanted a way to containerize solar. At that point in time, there was some limited information that was available on how to do that. So our platform teams and our application teams actually forked the Helm chart for the open source solar, and then from that created a template that addressed all of the cross-cutting concerns, whether that was scalability, security, and so on, and observability. And now we have the ability for various teams in advance, to deploy solar in OpenShift. I wish I could tell you that our journey was, flawless, everything worked as planned. The reality is that we had several lessons learned along the way. We had some stub toes or several hiccups. But in terms of what to anticipate on this journey, one of the key things was just sheer complexity. When we started this journey in 2018, we weren't just modernizing one part of our business. It felt like we were modernizing everything. And we had a number of different initiatives all running in at the same time. And all of these initiatives had some applications that were deployed on OpenShift. So just the sheer complexity of all of this running all at the same time, was pretty high. Some of the things that we learned was, teams had some difficulty in estimating their resources for applications as they were being moved to OpenShift. In most of the cases, just to be on the safe side, everyone over-allocated their applications. So that was one of the key things, while we had a few that were unallocated, underallocated. In some cases, we had applications where we did not have any quotas defined. So what that meant, especially when we had a shared production cluster, we had certain applications that were just grabbing resources. And we had some resource contention, which impacted other applications. And we had a few hiccups in production with that. We had a few, I would say, extremely large implementations. So in order to address that in production, what we had to do was, unfortunately, pin these applications to certain worker nodes and leverage taints and tolerations. We knew that was a temporary thing while we continued to address those applications. But going forward, we learned that we needed the project templates that had these resource quotas defined so that we could prevent applications from kind of impacting others, and they had a finite number of resources that were available to them. Another thing was, as we were moving applications, we had some that were supporting business as usual on-prem, while at the same time we were moving to OpenShift in the cloud. And so we had the same code base creating two kinds of artifacts, one to be deployed on JBoss and one to be deployed on OpenShift. And all of that added a lot of complexity. Thankfully, we kind of paused that after a point in time and focused primarily on our OpenShift deployments. Finally, just the number of initiatives that were going on also put a strain on our centralized platform teams. So basically, during our transformation, we were throwing a lot of change at our teams. A lot of change from a technology perspective, a lot of change from a process perspective, and all of this was happening to our team members. And if I had to describe them, I would break them up into two parts. The first one was just tied to the adoption of the modern technologies. And the second was actually scaling it to meet the needs of the enterprise. We had teams that were bought into, say, for example, DevOps, but they really didn't want to change how they did work. But what actually worked for us was creating these hybrid teams where we had the application teams partner with our centralized platform teams, working closely with Red Hat. Actually, that's where I met Shane. Shane was one of the key resources on our professional services team that worked closely with the teams as we were onboarding OpenShift. What really helped was they brought the thought leadership and skills to our team and really made the onboarding process a lot easier. They helped by removing the risks, and helping drive agility with the adoption of the platforms. What came out of these was, we had runbooks, we had these playbooks, we created templates, and in many cases created archetypes that were leveraged by other development teams to onboard them to OpenShift and build more services on the platform. So this method actually really helped us. From a training perspective, for upskilling our teams, we adopted formal training, but a lot of the train-the-trainer kind of programs. When we started, we had a centralized team, but as we onboarded a number of different applications teams, this model really became unsustainable. And we had to adopt more of a centralized approach where we had all of these resources within the separate teams. And that worked well. And teams that needed support, we provided that additional support. In terms of spreading the knowledge across the enterprise, we took a two-pronged approach. One was the top-down approach with a centralized team providing the best practices, the guardrails and guidelines with a center of excellence kind of approach. And also doing a bottoms-up, and fostering collaboration between the various teams through communities of practice. And we felt this really helped us along the way, especially as we started to scale out and bring more teams on board. One thing that was very important to us was to make sure that we didn't kind of get into the same situation where we were previously. And we really wanted to treat our platforms, and OpenShift particularly, as a product in its own, with its own backlog, and making sure that we were taking care of the care and feeding of the platform. So where are we today? We have several planes that are going to land this year and next year from a business transformation and a technology transformation perspective, but our journey continues. What I can say is we've made huge strides over the last few years in adopting key platforms, especially OpenShift. Our developers have shifted to these modern engineering practices, focusing a lot on automation, and as well as a muscle that we've been trying to grow considerably is how do we get more effective in terms of managing costs and looking at our FinOps practice a little bit. So in summary, what I could say is transformations and technology transformations are not without its complexity. As we onboard capabilities like OpenShift, you have so many different levers that you can tweak. So anticipate complexity and plan for it, and also make sure that your business partners are well-read and brought into the process. Things happened, so be prepared to evolve. But for us, truly, the key enabler was leveraging platforms like OpenShift. It allowed us to be able to go to market a lot more quickly. So it really helped from an agility perspective, but helped standardize this complex landscape that we started out with. We really believe that our team members are our best part. And so we had to make sure that we brought the right skills onboarded, and we also continue to upskill our teams. We were not immune to the great resignation of 2020 and 2021. So it was really important to grow that bench that we had by continuing to make sure that our teams had the right skills. And finally, we know that what has got us here is not what's going to get us where we want to go. But what we do know is this has really given us a strong foundation. It has allowed us to look at our problem space in a completely new light. We are now better equipped to look at how we can leverage things like AI/ML to see how we can continue to innovate and delight our customers, how we can explore edge technologies to solve things like basic offline capability at stores, to continue to provide unique features closer to where our customers interact with us. We are also better equipped to look at how we can build on our OpenShift platform, probably look at roads, and also look at how we can move from an ideation stage to a proof of concept to production a lot better. So in summary, our technology modernization using platforms like OpenShift has really set us up for the future. It has really set us up to advance. Thank you for your attention. Appreciate the chance to talk to you.